substance use at 4 times across 4 years. The parents reported on their caregiving practices, and we obtained DNA from the youth. So we obtained data from monitoring the future items that had to do with alcohol use, smoking cigarettes, and using marijuana. And then we have 2 scales that we have used for years and years and years, which are reliable and valid for rural African American families. So for our genotype assessments, here's what we do. There's this substance called orogene, and it's in the bottom of a little container, and we go into a home and we unscrew the cap. The youth will put about 4 mils of saliva into this little container, screw the cap back on, turn it upside down, and then the DNA is kind of separated from other particulate matter. We bring it back to the Center for Family Research. We ship it off to Rob Philibert's lab at the University of Iowa, where he does the genotyping. And here's our results. What we did is we used latent growth modeling, and so the first thing we did is we established that the youth in our study increased their use of substances in a linear manner over 4 years. And then we wanted to see whether having 1 or 2 copies of the short allele predicted that increase, and that was hypothesis 1, and that hypothesis was confirmed. Genetic risk was positively associated with increase in substance use over 4 years. The jugular hypothesis of the study, however, and the one that we were most interested in, which was, does competence-promoting parenting, can it ameliorate, condition this genetic linkage, was also confirmed. And so we did a multiple group data analysis, which basically looks at the relationship between the at-risk gene and the increase in substance use for youth who were the recipients of high levels of competence-promoting parenting and youth who were the recipients of lower levels. And actually, the data was pretty remarkable, because the link for youth who were receiving high levels of competence-promoting parenting between having 1 or 2 copies of the short allele and increase in substance use was basically non-existent. On the other hand, the link for youth who were receiving lower levels of competence-promoting parenting was remarkably strong. So, in summary, for this first study, using longitudinal epidemiologic research, was yes, 1 or 2 copies of this gene that conferred some risk for substance use was indeed associated with increases in substance use over 4 years. But that was only true for youth who were receiving relatively low levels of competence-promoting parenting. So, there we were. But we realized we had another opportunity. And it was an opportunity that was presented to us. It was an opportunity that was presented to us because Velma and I had this wonderful prevention program, which I'm going to share with you. And having a randomized prevention trial is something that many of us don't get to use very often. It's an experiment. And an experiment confers lots of advantages. I'm not quite ready. I'll let you know. one of the big advantages that testing gene by environment hypotheses have when you used a randomized prevention trial, particularly one that's efficacious, is you have a demonstrated environmental effect. And I love longitudinal epidemiologic research. But even in the study that I just reported, we have an environmental effect, but there are other rival hypotheses that could cloud the interpretation. But with a randomized prevention trial that's efficacious, you have a demonstrated environmental effect, and you rule out other effects that can masquerade as environmental effects, like maturation. Kids go through puberty. That changes how people respond to them. That could masquerade as an environmental effect. There could be an economic downturn, a historical artifact that could change interactions in families and masquerade as an environmental effect. But to the extent you have children and families randomly assigned to one condition or another, you rule out these other rival hypotheses that could account for your effects. So we wanted, Velma and I wanted to take advantage of this and see if we can replicate the study that I just spoke to you about using an experimental design. And this would be a good time to give you an introduction to the Strong African American Families program.